Yeah, there it goes. Now I'm getting a message. That's good.
Okay, fantastic. Okay,
Yeah.
so things are just setting up now. It's redirecting to a Facebook Live page and it should start very soon.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to our first episode of River Rants. We're so excited to have you. This is our first one, so sorry for the previous technical difficulties. I know we're a little late here, but that's bound to happen in today's world with everything we're learning and doing on technology. But we're really happy that you all could join us today. Um, with us is Jennifer Bristol. She has a storied history. She'll tell you all about her background and all her work here in a minute. She's fantastic. Be sure you check out her book after this. It's Parking Lot Birding. She can, on our Facebook, if you look there, you can get some signed copies of the book. And it's fantastic, and you will love to hear about it. So right now, I will turn it over to her. She's going to tell you a little bit about her background and everything. So go ahead, Jennifer.
All right. Well, thank you, Scott, for that introduction. And yeah, so my name is Jennifer Bristol, and I am the former director for the Texas Children in Nature Network, which is housed at Texas Parks and Wildlife. And I had the honor of being in that position for about 6.5 years. And my real focus was to get people outdoors, and in particular children. Um, and help create these opportunities where kids could play, explore, and connect with nature. And in particular, I wanted people to really focus on the nature around them, and that is nearby and in their everyday life. So, but I didn't just start off there at Texas Children in Nature. I worked. I really started getting into this field when I went to work for Bastrop State Park as a natural resource manager. And I read the book Last Child in the Woods, which, if you haven't read it, it's by Richard Louv, who, in full disclosure, also wrote the introduction, or I'm sorry, forward for my book. But it really, it ignited a spark for me. And even though I was already doing some things at Bastrop State Park, I kind of had to wait for people to come to the park for me then to have that point in contact with them. And I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to kind of reach kids where they were. And so I went to work for Campfire here in Central Texas, and was at first their curriculum writer, and then later was their program manager. And that was perfect because we were in 36 different after school programs, and so really able to reach those kids where they are, and especially at Title I schools and in high needs area. So that was a very rewarding work there. Wrote a couple award-winning programs with that organization, and then this opportunity came up to go work again with Texas Parks and Wildlife to run the Children in Nature Network. And I was really excited because then I could take sort of that broader spectrum and help create the network that was already kind of going across the country as well. Again, all fueled by Richard Louv's book, Last Child in the Woods. And this need, the need that he pointed out, that he so succinctly captured in that book, was the disconnection between children and nature. And research was showing at the time, so the book came out in 2006. I read it in 2007, 2008, somewhere. And the research that was coming out was pretty stunning, which was children were spending between 7 and 11 hours every single day indoors with media, and only minutes per day playing outside. And so that was done by the Kaiser Research Institute, and that alone just sort of shocked everybody and went, "Oh my gosh, how did we get here?" And so launched, this whole movement, and everybody was involved. That's what I was so attracted to about this, was it wasn't just the school systems or teachers or nature centers or parks. It was also the health side of things. both, physical health, mental health, was very involved, school counselors, the athletic programs, um, you name it. There was just a whole cadre of people that were like, this has to change. And another great field that was in there was also the landscape designers and architects, really looking at, even how do we restructure and rethink everything we're doing so that we have a better chance at connecting children to nature. And so, yeah, I was fascinated. I was hooked from the beginning, and still am, even though I've changed my career choice, slightly. I'm still very involved, and I still read just about every piece of research that comes out, and I'm still in it, it'll be a lifelong journey for sure. And and in a way, I started off in that way. My degree is in history at Texas State University, and I had originally wanted to be a high school teacher. And so, this really fell nicely into weaving that education component in with my love of the outdoors. And now people ask me that all the time, do I have a degree in biology or, something like that, especially when I work for Texas Parks and Wildlife. And the answer is no. My degree is in history, and it's a great degree to have, to work in the conservation field, for sure. And understand, why are we at this point that we're at right now in our world, and why in Texas do we only have 5% public lands, for example, as opposed to some states that have much greater public spaces for their populations. So that's a little bit about me. Then fast forward, I wrote the book, Parking Lot Birding, and which came out just in April. So we're just a month into that, and it's been going great. It came out right as the spring migration was coming through, and so and we were all locked down, and people were looking for activities to do, and suddenly birding becomes, something we can all do outside our office window or at the parking lot. We're picking up curbside groceries, or walking down our neighborhood street. So there's all kinds of opportunities out there for that. So, and I'm working on 2 more books. One right now with my mom about women in conservation, and the other one is a follow-up to Parking Lot Birding, but I'm not going to spoil it for you of what that is. You'll just have to wait and see. Looking at some of the questions that were sent over earlier, and Scott, do you want me to just kind of go from?
I'll go ahead. We can have a
Okay.
conversation.
Sure. Yeah,
You-
I think they're good on who I am.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. First thing I want to say, if there are any young people tuning in who are in college, who might be second guessing their path, obviously history is a great path. That's awesome. But your college education doesn't always dictate where you end up, and I think you're proof of that. But I'm curious. I know you read Last Child in the Woods, and it caused this brain explosion. Were those thoughts percolating in there before, or had you been slowly building this passion and that book just kind of blew it open?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've always loved the outdoors. My family has dedicated their careers to conservation in Texas and across the country as well, and so that's always been, in my background, and kind of what I was about. I hadn't really thought about the connection with children. Obviously we have our own personal experiences, and we think about those a lot of times. We don't think about the bigger picture, and the broader consequence of what happens when we as adults stop providing those opportunities for children to get outside. And so that's what I really connected with and focused on, and then the research that really stunned me. So it was already there that I wanted to get people outside, and was already, kind of all of my volunteer work was in that, and everything else was in that. So, but then it just sort of laser focus it on, okay, we have to make this connection with the kids.
Definitely. And this is a big question, but why is that connection so important?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go from the 30,000 foot level and then hyper bring it back down. So, the bigger picture, we're seeing it right now. We're living in it. People are desperate to get out to parks, and they want parks in their lives, and yet we live in a state where we only have 5% public lands, and so we're crowded more and more and more into these smaller spaces. And it's a beautiful day, and everybody wants to go to the lake, or they want to go down to the beach, or anywhere across the state. Sorry about that. That's my dad calling. Um, and so we're really, I feel like right now in this coronavirus atmosphere that we're in, we've peeled back that layer to really show ourselves that parks matter and public spaces matter, where we can create those opportunities for people to get outside. And so, I think that um, we have to have that layer of elected officials that that want to value and protect parks, to add parks to our public spaces, both at the state level, county level, and city level. And then we have to vote for it as citizens. We have to vote for it if there's a bond package or something of the like, to be able to afford those spaces. So that's the kind of the bigger picture. At the personal level, um, we there I believe that cities in particular have a public commitment and duty to our public health, and parks are a part of that connection. They are a space and a place that every citizen can get outside and do something that's active and healthy, and get vitamin D and all the other great things that go along with that. They're also a place where there's all kinds of research that's out that shows, even if somebody has a view, and I'm looking at my view, which is great, a view of green that they can see during the day, they feel calmer. They have less stress in their life. They feel less depression, and so that's equally true for children. And so I've gone to a lot of schools where they have tiny slits for windows, and they've taken away recess because the children were bad, and then they go into a cafeteria where there's no windows. They just don't have that. They're not even able to see the outdoors, let alone play and be in the outdoors. And so then you have an increase of behavior issues. We're really, now that we have the research that makes these connections between all these things, it's time. It's past time, but it's really time to say, okay, let's rethink everything. And I think we're in that, and that's what's really cool right now, is this big rethink of school campuses, of school buildings. How do you design those buildings so that you really have the best connection with the outdoors, again, for that health, especially the mental health thing for them. Offices are being designed for that specifically, for adults. The brand new Apple campus that's coming in to Austin will have all kinds of design features so that people can be in these outdoor spaces. And so I think the value is there. I think now it's our time to really just take the action. We've proven the case through all the different research that's come out, and so now it's time to really take that action. So those are kind of the scope of things that are happening right now.
Cool. I've got a couple questions. So obviously, before we hit a global pandemic, do you think that, I know you said there were a lot of people who kind of got woken up by The Last Child in the Woods and by that movement that was spurred by that. So in those years, do you think there was change being made, and what were some of the positive changes? And then also,
Yeah.
I know those changes, I don't want to say they've like gone backwards right now, but do you think that after we get out of this, it will be increased in a way because we've all realized how much we've missed outdoor spaces?
Yeah, I think yes, a big yes. Like if I could hold up a big sign and a banner, yes, to the last part of your question, that we it's really made it a reality and it made it close to our heart. And so I'm really interested to see where this goes, post COVID. Like maybe we need to call that like PC, or post whatever our acronym is there. But prior to this, there was a lot of change, and really good change happening, and that all came about because all of these different people from all of these different walks of life were getting together. We would host monthly meetings across the state, regional, some met quarterly. And at first it didn't seem like anybody was really doing anything concrete. And I would hear that a lot. Oh, we're not doing anything concrete. But there was something that was happening. And I kept saying, keep going, just keep going, because that's how grassroots movements start, right? Is everybody builds that trust. Everybody has to get to know each other and figure out, okay, what's the problem? What's the solutions? And how can we all take action? And so that was building. And then it was like all of a sudden, boom, 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 solutions and actions started taking place across the state, and different communities had different ones as they had enough research, had enough trust, had enough understanding of how they could pull all these, people together and organizations together to really take action. And so right here in Austin, through the Children of Nature Collaborative Austin, and with the City of Austin and AISD, they started what's called the Green School Parks program. And so a lot of people try to, green a campus, and they put a little garden in the corner, or they do something. But this is really to really rethink the whole campus as a classroom, from curbside to curbside, and not just what happens in the building. And, when I first heard the idea, I didn't come up with the idea, but once I heard it, I just gathered up everything and ran with it. Because I really loved this idea. The other part of that too was then to open up those campuses as parks in the evening, and to find ways to activate those. So this is all happening at the same time that this big research study that I got to help out with, that was through Texas Parks and Wildlife and Yale University and a number of other state or agencies around the country. It's called The Nature of Americans. And if anybody's out there and they work for a nonprofit, look up Nature of Americans, get yourself a copy of it, and then go write a grant, because it has all the bells and whistles that you need in there in order to really make the case of why do you need to have programs? Why do you need to have, more open spaces, public spaces, and the like? And what it found was that overwhelmingly children like to learn and play outside. Overwhelmingly, 90-something%. And that didn't matter if they were interviewed in Texas, Florida, or wherever they were interviewed. Parents and the adults were the ones that were, it was a little more complicated. They didn't know what to do when they got there. They weren't really, they didn't think they had the skill set. They didn't have enough information about the outdoors. And so because of that, they decided not to, not to take their children, even though they knew it was good for them. The questions that said, do you think this is healthy? Do you think it's good for their brain development stuff? They overwhelmingly, the parents would say yes. But then when it came down to the actual tactical part of it, they would say no. And, so that's like a aha moment. Okay, great. Well, here we have it then. It's the parents that need the programs, the parents that need those experiences in the outdoors and through outdoor education with as a family group to build that confidence level. Kids instinctively know what to do when they get out there. I mean, a stick can become an endless opportunity of games and things like that, especially for younger kids. And then older kids, it's a great place to socialize, and so, but again, it's the adults that need the convincing as to why to do this. And I think now more than ever, I think that as a teacher, I mean, all of a sudden, people are stuck at home with their kids. And I would watch this, in our own neighborhood and at the neighborhood parks and stuff. They were desperate to get their kids out. They were just like, oh my gosh, what can we do next? And, I was posting things like about Nature Rocks, and which is one of the websites from Texas Children Nature where they can find parks in their community. They can find things to do. And, so it's like this great awakening, I think. And we'll see what happens, when we go back, but so going back to the Green School Parks process, so we have the Nature of Americans happening, Green School Parks coming online also, and AISD, through this Austin Independent School District, really took that and started looking at their entire building guidelines and what did they want to do to improve outdoor spaces and even the indoor spaces so that they're allowing more light and views of nature throughout the schools. And so they are putting that into their design guidelines so that any new school or a renovated school will have more outdoor classrooms, a natural play area, things like that. One thing that Texas is blessed with are huge school campuses. Other states don't have that. And so rethinking those of how are those part of our ecosystem services and our green space within a community to see them as parks as well as a place of learning and a school. So that's just this is a very long answer to get to one specific project, and those are now happening in San Antonio and Houston as well, as those kind of pick up those programs. And a spinoff of that was also outdoor learning environments, which was for childcare centers. And this was a project through the Department of State Health Services and a wonderful woman named Carrie Browning, who thought, gosh, what are we doing at childcare centers? We should be rethinking how how much time are young children spending outside and physical and active play. And so so I went down that rabbit hole for a long, and it's a good rabbit hole. I forget how many thousands of children every single year are in daycare. Of course they're not now, but and so again, that led to some policy changes for the guidelines for how much time children should spend having connection with living and growing things while they're at a daycare center. So, some really good policy changes as well. And I'll point this out. This is another great book. There were some guidelines that came out, and this is, I don't know if you can see this well enough, but this was a project done through the National Learning Institute, National Wildlife Federation, and the U.S. Forest Service, with Robin Moore and Nelda Costco to come up with guidelines so that daycare centers had that, as well as then these can be kind of morphed into the school centers as well. And I would love, this is a Jen Bristol plug here, I would love to see more faith communities look at their campuses as well and think about how they can really rethink those and use those as a place for reflection and spiritual growth, as well as in this time when people might be feeling a little extra stressed and need that for their mental health as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious, you touched on this a little, but so 90% of kids love to learn and play outdoors. And then as adults, people think it's too complicated. What gets lost in there? Is this just generations passing it down and down, or what happens there?
Yeah, that was really interesting to both listen to the parents, talk about why this was so. Time management is always something huge, and but this, I'll talk about two different things because I've given whole presentations on this, but so it really started for me in the 1980s. This little TV station came online. It was called Cable Network News, CNN, and it started off, and it was going to be 24 hours news, but they didn't have 24 hours worth of news, and they were trying to fill it with just about anything that they could. And then this beautiful little girl named Jessica falls down a well here in Texas. And CNN sends their crews out there and they cover this thing night and day until Jessica's recovered. But in just about every 10 minutes, the message was that this father who was letting her, his little girl play outside, went inside and wasn't paying attention to her and turned her back on her for a few minutes. And all of a sudden she fell down a well. So the message there is, parents, don't be that guy, and B, don't let your kids play outside, because outside is a dangerous place. And that just message was driven home again and again and again and again. And that was kind of a big beginning, a big shift. We changed the way that we lived. Suburban communities are famous for being little boxes surrounded by, so you have your little box and then there's a fence around the whole big box. And so we stopped being outside as much. Video games came on. There's just layers of social changes that happened. And then teachers were really hit with teaching to the test. And parents were convinced that, yes, okay, that test score is the end all be all. And so every single program and project that a child does is somehow related to better performance on that test. And that is a disservice, in many ways. And I get it. I know we have to have some way to show, what is a child's progression through the grades and things like that. And I totally get it. But, it limits teachers on what they can do. It limits parents in their thinking of what they should do. And so, those are just some of the many layers that are happening all simultaneously at the same time. But then, then this thing comes along, an iPhone, which, I love. But it also is the electronic pacifier. And so it's easy, it's easy to be like, oh, well, my son is super wound up today. I could take him to the park, but I kind of also have to do all these other things. I'll just let him play a video game on my iPhone instead, or my device instead. So technology is the easy answer. It's sometimes a little bit more, it takes more time, to walk down the street, go for a walk, those kind of things. But people have time right now. And I've seen in my neighborhood, I know that y'all have seen it in probably yours too, people are out, they're walking, they're doing things outside and they're really liking it. And so this is one of those, sort of hidden consequences, I think, of what would the outcome of COVID be? And so again, then that goes back to, cities and stuff, making sure that we have walkable cities. And so that all neighborhoods, not just some, but all neighborhoods are well connected to parks, well connected and have complete streets and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it all sort of folds into, why do parents make that choice of not going out? They were, a lot of them also say that they didn't get to go out when they were kids as well. They were busy. 1-2 generations into this now. And, suburbia changed a lot of what we do and how we do it. And so we're having to rethink that and say, okay, all these things are valuable. Your fears are valuable. Your time constraints are valuable. Your limit of resources is valuable. So let's really think about how can we be smart and create cities and communities that give these people opportunity.
That's great. Thank you. I want to, since we're a water nonprofit, I kind of want to ask some water related questions, if that's okay. A lot of our programs, our field trip programs and things like that, they teach kind of the building blocks of water science and understanding where water comes from. Why is it important for kids to understand all those building blocks and be outdoors to really appreciate all of it?
Yeah. Water is, especially here in Texas, it's a really tangible thing, that kids can learn about. And because they're naturally, whether you walk past a puddle and they want to throw a rock in it or a stick in it, it's that tangible thing that they can really latch onto. It's a little bit easier to understand than air pollution or light pollution, or, a little bit more ethereal kind of stuff. We drink it every day. We take a shower in it. Some people every day during COVID, maybe not as frequently. I don't know. So kids can relate to it. They want to swim in it. They want to splash in it. They want to get in it, and it's really tactile. They want to go fishing, boating. There's all kinds of activities that they can do, water related. So it's a great connection. It's an easy one to be able to, show them the whole sort of source. And I love the map behind you there. But,
Mhm.
It's also a great way to show how everything is connected um, throughout a whole ecosystem, and then relate it back to ourselves. Oh, we need clean water, right? The fish need clean water. Oh, the animals need clean water. It all kind of relates, and it's a great connector, I think, to all the other different environmental sciences and stuff. So that's one of the reasons I think y'all do a great job, with providing that.
Yeah, that's a really, I like that water is a great connector. I really like that, thinking of it like that. That's cool. Um, One issue that we hear a lot from kids and adults is accessibility. They don't think they can enjoy the outdoors because they can't get to the river, or they can't travel somewhere where it's beautiful and scenic. This ties in a little bit to your book that you wrote, but can you talk about how, especially right now, how people can kind of um, tap into their close by outdoors and really
Yeah.
enjoy it?
Yeah, certainly. And this is part of the great mind shift that I think is happening right now. Is So when I got to sit behind the glass and listen to the focus groups talk about nature, and they didn't know what they were coming to talk about, and so they were really honest and really open. Over and over again, I would hear people saying nature was a faraway place. It was the rainforest, it was the Rocky Mountains, it was the beach, it was the Sahara, it was just somewhere else. It wasn't here. And so, I just remember making just all of these notes, and, a whole notebook full of notes, thinking about that. And why do we have, this view? And why don't we think of nature being, Katie was describing, the blue jay nest outside of her office window. Why are we green blind sometimes? We're blind to the green around us a lot of times. And it's because of all the reasons I described, our busyness, our complicated and complex lives that we lead. And But that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is I wanted to make nature the easy choice. I wanted it to be easy for people to find, and then manage those expectations when they got there of, here's what you're probably going to see, here's where you want to go, here's the easy places to kind of walk around and move around, because I believe people can have rich experiences in nature and they don't have to hike the south rim of Big Bend. They don't have to kayak all the way down the Colorado River, which is awesome, but not doable, for everybody. And so they can have those really meaningful experiences in a little bit more intimate space. And so that was one of the reasons that I wrote the book. It's also one of the reasons that I helped really create, design, and market Nature Rocks, which is a website for places to get outside in Texas. It's naturerockstexas.org. And like here in Austin, I think there's something like 400 and something places where people can go and get outside, and so it's right there, having that data right there and available, again, making it the easy choice of where to get outside. Because not everybody can travel. And so that kind of goes back then to the city obligations to create complete communities that have, what are called complete streets, where they have big sidewalks and trees and places to sit, and looking at those instead of sidewalks that are right next to the road and they're a little precarious and dangerous, especially if you're walking with young children. Creating safety within parks and making those accessible, putting bus lines to them, putting sidewalks that connect communities back to their parks. One of my friends, Jaime Gonzalez, who's down in Houston, gives a great presentation. He's from Houston, so he thinks a lot about this, but he says, we have designed the perfect habitat for cars, but we forgot to design perfect habitats for ourselves. And so I think we're in a big rethink, a big mind shift of how we can do that, in how we design our communities so that everybody has those opportunities and not just pockets of the population.
That's great. Yeah. I want to say real quick, if you're watching and you have a question for Jennifer, feel free to just shoot it out in the comments, and I can read it out and we can get that answered. So feel free to ask her. I meant to say that at the top of the video, but I definitely did not. But if you have questions, throw them out there. All right. So you might have just answered this completely, but are there any other takeaways or lessons from your books that you want people to latch onto?
It's interesting kind of what I think that people should latch onto, and then what feedback I'm getting that they are latching onto is when I wrote it, it was an eye towards nature tourism, but people are using it because they're at home and they're looking at it and learning about the birds that are right there in their community, and so that's really pretty cool. I tried to make it very easy to follow, and what birds happen in different seasons and stuff. So as we're kind of winding down the spring migration right now, people are seeing what birds are nesting in their yard, and it's really cool. I mean, the feedback I've gotten is a lot of it was unexpected. I will say, for me, the takeaway was I wanted people to find places to have great experiences in nature, but it turns out they're having great experiences in nature at the most local level at their homes, which is cool, or even the balcony of their apartment building, which is really cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's really inspirational seeing people get passionate about those things that are just happening right around them. That's
Yeah.
great. You said your next book is about women and conservation. We in our programs, especially our Mobile River program, we talk to 7th graders, and we try to encourage them to go towards STEM careers or other careers that have kind of a conservation bend. I'm curious what you would say to a young female who might be wanting to go in that direction, and some of those fields especially are a little more male dominated. What's some good takeaways or good advice for that population?
Yeah, the outdoor industry has been fairly male dominated over the centuries. In the careers, this is where the dichotomy kind of happens. That's true in the careers. But as far as the volunteer work and the funding and the awareness raising and the grassroots and all of that other part that happens, that's been very driven by women. And so, I talk to kids all the time about as they're thinking about their career paths, to really open their minds up. Like I said, my degree is in history, and but then there's also people that specialize in marketing and communications, which is equally as important. They can specialize in nonprofit management, which is very important, or volunteer management, outdoor education, formal education. I mean, if you want to be a science teacher and get those kids connected, that's fantastic. There's so many more careers than just being a park ranger, or you know, a game warden, the kind of things that we see kind of, on TV and kind of out there a little bit, wildlife biologist, those kind of things. So, I talk about Texas Parks and Wildlife when I use that as an example. When I worked there, I was in the communications division, which is filled with people who are telling the story of nature, and putting that out there. And so, there's people with degrees in English, with degrees in history, degrees in, you name it, that are not your traditional kind of what you would think of. Marketing and advertising is another great one. There's also all the accounting people. I mean, every nonprofit and every state agency needs somebody who has good administrative or accounting skills. And that's a great degree to have. We couldn't operate without those people. So, I think about them. Architecture and landscape design is another fantastic field to go in. And I think it's a real growth area right now. There's a lot of really interesting, especially in urban planning, park design. That's a great field to go into right now. And I think the other part is, not to be afraid. I mean, maybe you get into class and everybody else in there is a guy, but you just take that class anyway, and you see yourself as an equal, and move on. There's a great woman I think she's in Laredo. Her name is Mossy, and she won a degree in wildlife biology. And she talks about her experience as being not only the only woman in a lot of her classes, but she's like 4'11", so she's a tiny little thing, and she's Hispanic. So she had all of these different things to overcome, and her story is great. I love talking to her about just kind of pushing through and believing in her dream and to achieve it. So there's lots of different careers and in that field, and not to get locked into, oh, I have to have a degree in biology, or I have to have a degree in outdoor recreation. So kind of opening their mind to all the different ways that they can.
Yeah, definitely. That's helpful. Thank you for that. That's probably good. And I don't know, little, I don't, it's good to hear those things. I know that I could have used with some of that advice for sure. We have one question that came in. What's your personal favorite spot in nature? What's the best nature you've surrounded yourself with?
Well, my house. I mean, really and truly, we chose this specifically because we walked down the street all the time. And we said, if one of those houses goes up for sale, we're gonna figure out how to buy it. And the universe answered, and one went for sale. And I get to look out my office window at this wall of green and these beautiful birds. But if I'm going out to bird here in Central Texas, boy, that's hard. That's such a pick. Recently, I've been in love with Berry Springs Park, which is up in Georgetown, and I like it because it's easy to social distance there. They have big, wide paths to walk down, so you can be birding and not also right next to each other. And it has the springs, and it has great interpretive stuff, has great interpretive and interactive stuff for children as well. So I really like Berry Springs Park. If I had to get, if you said, okay, you have to go to a park right now, where would it be? Gosh, I really like South Llano River State Park for birding. It doesn't matter what time of year, it seems like there's always something great going on there. It's on the river also, so you can enjoy that aspect. But I like it all. I mean, I just I like it all, from the coast to, depends on what season. I just got back from East Texas, and this time of year it starts getting a little hot and buggy and stuff. But boy, I love it there in the fall. So just really depends on what season is going on. But on the day-to-day basis, yeah, my yard is my favorite.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Cool. So what's your birding life list looking like? How's that shaking? And also, what's the
Yeah, I'm in the 400s, and I kind of have gotten a little stuck. I was hoping to get that a little higher this spring, but obviously no can do on that because we were locked down during the best part of the migration, which is okay. That's okay. I did pick up a lifeless bird this year. There was a bird that came in from Russia. It usually lives in Russia, but it was at Roy Guerra Park, and it's called a white wagtail. So, me and just about every other birder in Austin went down to see that. So that was right before all the lockdown stuff happened. But yeah, I'm in the 400s, and I'm ready to get into the 500s.
nice,
We'll
nice.
put it there.
What's what's your favorite bird and what's the coolest bird you've seen?
Oh man. The coolest bird. Hmm. Boy, that's hard. Ah, I don't know. I For some reason the grooveball awning is coming to mind. It's a bird that happens in South Texas. There was a sighting here in Travis County uh, during the lockdown, and again, every birder in Austin tried to go out and see it, and that was pretty comical. But they're kind of this prehistoric looking bird. They look like a big grackle. They're black, and they have this really big beak um, that has grooves on it, hence the grooved bill awning. And they look kind of big and menacing, but they have this really pretty little voice. And I know they're really a great bird. They're usually down in South Texas. The first time I watched a pair, um, they were just clicking their beaks together, and they were really yeah. I just was like, oh, they were just unexpected. I guess is but then there's the colorful birds that I never get tired of seeing, like a yellow warbler. I think is just pure joy. When they come through. Um, I have a nice little community of chickadees that live here in the yard who they know me. They know when I come out to fill the feeders, they're talking to me. If the feeders are not full, they're talking to me about it. So I love the little birds that are right here in our yard as well. Um, All-time favorite bird. I often talk about the magnificent frigate bird, which is down on the coast. But yeah, they're kind of one of my all-time favorite birds. They're a seabird that never lands on the water, and I'll leave it at that.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I love magnificent frigate birds. They're so cool. I got to see one last time we went to the coast. They're
Awesome.
fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. I'm gonna check and see if there are any other questions that have rolled in. Um, we had one who asked if there's any special birds migrating through Austin to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, so we're right on the backside of the spring migration. And if you do want to go see some migrants, go to Mills Pond, which is here in North Austin, off of Wells Branch Parkway. So it's Mills Pond. And if there are still lingering migrants, they'll probably be there. Um, Central Texas is the nesting place for a lot of those migrating birds, which is great. And of course, every golden cheek warbler, which is an endangered species, is born right here in Central Texas. And they nest in the Canyonlands. So the Balcones Canyonlands National Wildlife Preserve is a great place to go see them, as well as Pedernales Falls State Park, West Cave, Outdoor Discovery Center and Preserve are good places to see those as well. Um, Painted buntings will nest here, which everybody loves a painted bunting. They just are stunningly beautiful. The summer tanager, I'm happy to say we've got several nesting pairs here in our neighborhood in North Austin, and they are North America's only purely red bird. So they're a really fun bird to see. Northern Parulas, we're on the kind of western edge for them, but they'll nest here as well. They're a migrant and a really pretty little bird to see as well. Trying to think of what else in the migrating birds that'll be here. Those are kind of the ones that come and stay. Black-capped vireo is another one. I was just out the other day, yesterday actually, and saw a magnolia warbler. So there's still a few of the warblers that are still coming through that are kind of stragglers. They better hurry up and get north. And then, but don't worry, the show's not over. I mean, that's what I love about Texas, right? We have front row seats to both the spring and the fall migration. And so starting in August, starting in July, we'll see the purple martins start roosting up and massing up. They'll leave first, then go the nighthawks, then here come all the hummingbirds. You know, these just big waves of everything will start coming through again in the fall. And they're not as in concentrated masses, but they're really exciting to see. And then of course, once we get later in the fall, then you see the sandhill cranes and the geese and, you know, all the bigger shorebirds going by as well.
Yeah, that's great. Texas is a fantastic place for birding. We have one final question. We're about out of time here, but we had one final question come in, which is are there any great resources for introducing children to birding?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So I wrote a blog. I have two blogs out. There's one on my website, which is theatomiccowgirl.com. And on there, I list birding books, different games and activities, different things for people, you know, kids to engage them with. And then I have another blog that's on the Children in Nature Network, the national network, about ways to connect kids with birding. And one of the pieces I talk in there is making it kind of gaming. You know, the gaming industry got it right when it comes to children wanting to count things and you know, check things off and stuff. So anything that you can make like that, you know, oh, we're gonna, you know, so how many birds can we see today, and you know, how many ones can we identify, and you know, that kind of thing really brings it alive for kids. And then reinforcing that with, you know, coloring books and stories and things that they can, you know, read and do when they're inside as well. So kind of having that outdoor experience and then also the indoor experience. So yeah, those are the two blogs that I have. National Wildlife Federation has all kinds of stuff. National Audubon has all kinds of stuff on their websites as well. And we'll have links. I think it was on the National Wildlife Federation website that they have a bunch of books listed, you know, for and games. I was looking at this kind of when we were still in lockdown and was thinking about, you know, what were some of the things. Now it's, you know, the weather's nice, we can get outside a little more, but again, reinforcing those with those indoor things is great.
Definitely. Great. Was there anything else you wanted to cover or say at the end?
No, you know, I really appreciated this, and in thinking about the Colorado River, you know, and places to go and get outside. I mean, there's just, it's a whole cornucopia of parks and stuff all along our great watershed that I hope people can get out to. And it also is a big migrant zone, you know, especially as the birds, you know, are following their ancestral lines. The Colorado River has been one of those big flyways. And so, you know, I hope during the fall, if you want to get out and see some of that migration, but also then during the summer, getting out and enjoying this amazing resource that we have right here in our own backyard.
Yes, definitely. And if y'all are out on the Colorado River and see some cool birds and you happen to snap a photo, tag us in those pictures and we'll reshare them. So if you get some good belted kingfisher photos, I love seeing those. But anyone out there, feel free to tag us in any social media post and we'll share them for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on today. And
Jennifer, thank you so
if
much.
you,
We really appreciate your
yeah,
time. This was
yeah,
fantastic. It was great talking to you. Everyone, go to her website, Atomic Cowgirl, and get her book. She's got signed copies on there, and it's fantastic. And look for those next books coming up. I'm really looking forward to those for sure.
thank you.
Um, So just right here at the end, I want to bring on our program manager, Katie Bedrich, to talk about some of the programs that the Colorado River Alliance has going on. So go for it, Katie.
Oh, hey, y'all. I was just doing some backyard birding of myself out here outside my apartment window. But it was really awesome hearing Jennifer speak. Thank you so much to Jennifer for sharing your wonderful resources and insight. I just wanted to share with y'all a little bit about what we're doing at Colorado River Alliance during this time that we're not hosting our normal programming. If you're not familiar with our education programs, we have normally have our Redbud field trip program out at the Redbud Center. They're 4-hour totally free water science education field trips. And that program has been happening for over 10 years. So this is the first time that we've been missing our students like this. And we also have our Mobile River program that goes out and visits Austin ISD middle schools throughout the year, teaching them different in-class lessons and curriculum about water science and resources. So during this time that we're not getting to see our students regularly, we have made some adjustments and put some of these resources and some of our curriculum online. So I'm going to show y'all where to find that right here. If you go to our website, that's coloradoriver.org, and you'll see our programs up at the top, new online resources. And down here we have our Redbud field trip materials. So these are sort of virtual field trips that we've made available for teachers and parents, anyone who is, teaching their kids at home. We've also got our Mobile River program curriculum. So for some of those older students, taking web quests and things like that. We have also different parent resources. So some fun games that kids can do. We'll have a scavenger hunt on here soon. That's a great way to get your kids outside and away from the screen for a little bit. Are scavenger hunts or, bird bingo or native species bingo or things like that. And of course, we do have places where you can donate during these times and some fun Zoom backgrounds as well. But no matter what happens coming this fall, whatever decisions are made, we will continue supporting our students and schools and anyone across the Colorado River Basin that is interested in learning about our precious water resources. So if you would like to donate to Colorado River Alliance, you can do that on our website as well. Help us continue the work that we're doing with students and communities across the basin. And yeah, we look forward to being able to continue all this work. And if you enjoyed today's River Rant episode, be on the lookout for our next one, which will be in a few weeks with another guest speaker. So thank you so much to Jennifer for kind of being our guinea pig today. And thank you to everyone who took the time to watch. All right. I think we're ready to sign off here. So y'all get outside today and send us some pictures.
Thank you all for watching so much. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye-bye.